Good morning, my name's Jason.
Good morning. My name's Steve.
We are the Highwaymen. We're the hatted Highwaymen today.
Doing our bit for climate change.
And today we are talking about the COVID conspiracy. Dun, dun, dun. In fact, I'm going to try and find that sound effect now and add it in. I'm sure I'll find it. COVID conspiracy. What are your thoughts on COVID and the conspiracy?
Before we do that, does that look a bit Bruno Mars-ish? What do you reckon? The two hat malarkey?
I don't know. I've never seen him in two hats.
He always wears two hats, or a bandana and a hat.
That's a different vibe, man.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to do a bit of a take on that then. So I'm going to go for a hat and then a bandana.
That's not a bandana. Oh my God, you've not got one of those buttons. Don't do it, Stephen. If you have a bandana, you've got to do it with a bandana, not one of them pretend ones with a little.
Well, don't you go dishing my headgear, mate.
Do it properly. Right. Anyway, so the COVID conspiracy. What's your thoughts on COVID? Let's go.
Okay. Well, it's real. I mean, let's be brutally honest. It is real.
Yeah.
So there is something out there. So, okay, here we go. Here we go. First of all, let me just get something out there. My father passed away in December of 2019.
Sorry to hear that, mate.
And it was with COVID.
Oh, okay.
Everything that he suffered with, bless him, and as he was passing away, was classic COVID. But in December of 2019, we didn't know what COVID was. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't until the March when we went into lockdown and it all became a thing in the bits and pieces. But on his death certificate, it was COPD.
Right.
But without a shadow of a doubt, what he, bless him, he died of exactly with the ventilators and all the other bits and pieces was classic that. I also recall at the time being very poorly myself. I remember several of my friends and colleagues being very poorly at the time with a continuous cough that wouldn't go away and all the classic signs that we just didn't recognize back then. When it did become known in the February, March time, the following year in the 2020, I remember speaking to quite a high up police officer, if I'm honest with you, and him telling me that 3 man-made strains of a virus have been created in a laboratory.
Right.
Whether by accident, whether on purpose, I do not know, had then been released out. Now, the 3 strains basically were a mild one, a not very nice one, and a fatal one.
Right.
This is way back then, bear in mind. And so it's kind of ironic now with hindsight looking back that people suffered in different ways with it. Yeah. They either had it, didn't even know they got the bloody thing, which you could argue, well, that's the mild one. And this is still true today. People got it and were poorly with it, but recovered and have now got long-term COVID or whatever else it is. And then other people that got it and it did for them.
And when were you told this?
This was the very, very beginning of 2020, the very beginning. Probably late January, early February.
Well, there's a conspiracy theory in itself.
There you are.
So you don't think Bill Gates was trying to inject us with microchips then?
Back to your injections. Have we all been injected with stuff? I do find it weird how quickly they were able to come up with an antidote, if you like. However, if you look, all the natural viruses, if you like, that scientists have tried, common cold, or the flu. It took years and years and years to be able to come up with something because they didn't understand the building blocks. To be able to come up with this, they have to first of unravel it all and find out what the strands make up. And then once they realize what this virus is made of, they can then try and come up with different antidotes to try and alleviate it. It makes a lot of sense that this was man-made because they were able to come up with a vaccination very, very quickly. Not just one company, several all did, if you remember. Pfizer did, and a few others all over at the same time. Now, if they'd been given the basic building blocks of how the virus was created in the first place, you would be able to come up with a vaccination very quickly. So my theory, and I'm sorry to sort of nutshell it almost so quickly, but I genuinely believe it was man-made. I genuinely believe it was put out there, but it's gone a bit too far. I think it was put out for a reason to cull the population, especially the elderly people. It's gone a bit too crazy. I then do believe that all of the main governments in the world have been given the basic building blocks of it to be able to come up with a vaccination for it. That's what I think.
See, I was very much not thinking about the conspiracy side of it at all. You know, as I said, my daughter works in the hospital. She dealt with a COVID patient. She's seen a lot of people die. I know people that have died. I know people that have had it. So I definitely believe, you know, I had my injections without, you know, even questioning it. But the thing that I'm questioning now is, here we are 18 months on from when it started, and it's not even a thing anymore. You know, if you have COVID, you go to work. You can't. I can't believe that they're not still saying, you know, if you've got COVID, if you do have to go out, wear a mask. You should still stay in for 10 days after symptoms finish. They're not giving you any of that. They're just saying, well, go to work and just carry on as normal now. Don't bother. And that's the thing that I kind of think is weird. The fact that there's no kind of thought of it anymore. You know, it is still as deadly. Yes, we've got that herd immunity. So many of us got it, so it's not as spreadable as it probably was. And I understand the science behind that, but I just find it really weird that now people aren't just getting told not to stay away from people and keep 2 meter distance.
It's all about money. You know, sadly, this is the whole
lots of people have made lots of money over this.
Oh, enormously. And not only that, so the hospitals were, as well, you know, the hospitals were becoming completely overwhelmed, couldn't cope with it. And another really sad side of, or knock-on effect of that, was all the poor buggers that were halfway through radiation treatment, cancer treatment, things like that. They all got pushed to one side because they were falling over themselves to try and keep up with this. So the reason that we all got told to stay inside, the reason, if you remember back to the day where there used to be the three people, there was Boris, and there was Chris, and there was who was the other guy who was there? Not so, anyway, it doesn't matter. But the logo behind them was stay home, stay safe, protect the NHS, if you remember. And that's what it was all about, Jake. Do you know what? From a mercenary point of view, it would have been brilliant for the government to knock off a lot of the old people, because we don't have to pay them pension anymore. They're not really worth, do you know what I mean? They're not chucking anything back into society. They're not productive. They're not doing this. All we do is we're paying for them to stay alive. Happy days. Yeah, get rid of a few of that. But of course, it got to a point whereby it was absolutely overwhelmed. They popped up the Nightingale hospitals. Do you remember the temporary hospitals?
Never got used.
They were never used, but nevertheless, they were there just in case. And so now suddenly, people are not dying quite so. It's not coming in the same big waves.
No.
And whilst it's not ideal, it is capable with it. They can cope with it. So if you've got everyone furloughed, and I'm just going to put out there, by the way, and I'm passionate about this. I work full time. I never had a day's furlough. My wife works full time. She never had a day's furlough. We're both classed as key workers, all right? So all the way through the pandemic, where a lot of people sat on their backsides and were paid to do so, we didn't. We absolutely didn't. So if you're watching this, Chancellor, I strongly suggest that what you look at is all the key workers get a little bit of a rebate in their tax, and they don't have to pay any more tax. And all the people that we paid for to go and sit on their bottoms so that you could protect the NHS, they get their taxes hiked up so that they can pay the money back that they were given.
Well,
Anyway,
can I suggest you need to go online a little bit more, because there is such a system in place at the moment
oh, really?
where people who have worked during furlough get a tax rebate.
Really?
Yes.
Thank you, mate. I didn't know that. And I
Well,
wonder how many other people didn't know that.
there you go. I think you must have, perhaps you've subliminally seen it. I've seen adverts for it. I've seen adverts for it.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's good. That is good to know.
So you
Anyway.
get some money back. But you're going off something. So do we think there's a conspiracy? We think there's something definitely going afoot. We think COVID's real. We think there's some shenanigans. Well, we know there's some shenanigans afoot, because, like I say, people have made a lot of money out of it. But we definitely think something's not right in the ether.
Definitely. I genuinely do believe it was put out there. Whether by accident, whether on purpose, I really don't know on that one. But it makes a world of sense to me. That thing that I was told all that time ago, before it became a massive thing, it does make sense. 3 different strains, manufactured in a laboratory, beg your pardon. How were they able to come up with vaccines so quick? Well, because they'd been given the basic building blocks of how the virus was created. To be able to be given that, someone has to have known how it was made. Therefore, it was man-made.
Fair enough. Sounds good to me, mate. Can I just add one other thing to this before we leave it? Obviously, we're all wearing masks. Well, we've all got masks now. We've all been wearing masks, and we're used to wearing masks. Do you not think they should perhaps pass some sort of law, whereas if you've got a cold or something and you go out, you have to still wear a mask? I think that would be just polite, really.
Yeah, I suppose so. My mother still does.
If you got a cough or a cold, I mean, to be honest, I would still do it now. Because I'm not the sort of person to let a little cough stop me from going to work. However, I would now consider wearing a mask if I'm around people who've got a bit of a cough.
I got to be honest, my mother still wears one all the time inside.
Yeah, a few people do, but I think it's a polite thing to do. I think we should stick to that. If we're not very well, we know we're not very well, we go out, we should put a mask on.
Do you not think? I mean, you know what I do for a living, and I've discovered...
Steve's a stripper. Yeah, he's done it a few times, so just so you all know now.
Why I'm struggling, by the way, everybody. I only made 50p last week.
That's why he's going to buy an old car, because he can't afford a new one.
I made 50p last week, and I've had to refund 49 pence of it. It's dreadful.
Good man.
But I do think it's brought out the worst and the best in people.
Yeah.
Without we never used to be this selfish, Jay. No. And now nobody's got time for anybody else other than the ones that do, and they've gone completely the other way. It's very, very strange. I think it's had a massive impact. The whole thing, the lockdown scenario. I mean, Charlie, my goodness, I'm getting really worried about it, because she's kind of she doesn't want to go out, she doesn't want to do all the other bits and pieces. And then when I look at her friends and speak to other parents of kids of the same age, they're exactly the same.
Yeah, so they're used to not doing it.
And now they live their lives in a virtual world.
But the thing you got to remember is, with Charlie being the age, she's 14, isn't she?
Just coming up to, yeah.
So she's 13 years old. A year out of your life when you're 13 is a huge chunk of your life, because she doesn't remember much before she was 6 anyway. So it's so you think about it, it's probably 20% of her life has been in lockdown. So she doesn't really remember, as much of like we do. We've got a lot of life to look back on and remember. But because she's so young, she doesn't remember much of any other way.
It was kind of weird, because obviously before moving back down here to Lincolnshire, we lived up in Orkney on a little island, and that was the polar opposite. There was literally, there's no crime up there. There's no police where we lived, because there was no crime. So the kids would be out till whenever they wanted. It never got dark at night times. So in the summertime, they just do your thing. They were almost feral. So the amount of freedom that they had was like unbelievable. Everybody knew each other. So they'd rock up. I don't know if all of them, I say all of them, probably 5 or 6 kids, all turned up at the pub or something like that. Then I won't say names, but basically they'd go in, they'd all have pop, they'd all have crisps, they'd all do the bits and pieces. And the next time we went down the pub, they'd say, "Oh, you owe me 20 quid because they've all the kids came in the other night."
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
They're down there drinking whiskey and gin because, you know.
I taught Charlie to drive at 7 years old.
Did you? I think we should edit that one out before the police come knocking on your door.
But it was normal up there.
Yeah,
it was normal. It's ironic.
Yeah,
so anyway,
right.
she went from this huge amount of freedom. So in other words, one extreme to another. This huge amount of freedom to come back down here to literally a couple of months later, poof, you can't leave your house.
Yeah,
that must have been. I can't get my head around how that must have felt. To say we were never furloughed, so it was business as usual for me.
Yeah.
The only difference was we went from running packed trains everywhere to moving empty ones up and down the country, and I don't see how they're going to get out of it, because technology has played a good part during lockdown for them. They were able to continue their schooling through Zoom, Teams, and all that sort of stuff. They were able to interact with their friends, but that's just been carried on. They go to school, they do their thing, and then at the end of it, are you going to go and see your friends? Well, I'm with my friends now. No, you're not. You're sat in your bedroom.
Yeah.
No, they're all on there. Are they going to continue living their lives that way, I wonder? So are their jobs, are they going to have virtual jobs and virtual money? Might as well just go and live in a shed. Just stay in a shed or something and live your life on a computer.
Well, that'll sort out the climate change issue we've just been discussing anyway. Everyone's living in sheds. Right, we're going to wrap this one up now. So yes, COVID conspiracy. We're not quite sure how deep it goes. We don't think it's probably as sinister as some people are out, but then other ways it probably is. Shall we leave it there, mate?
We'll leave it there.
Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and do everything else you want to do, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.